fathom a society functioning smoothly without the rule of law enforcement. It's a reality, a complex web that we find ourselves navigating in the world today. And Pakistan, our focus for today, is no exception. In the grand scheme of societal structures, law enforcement plays the principles of fairness and equality. But what happens when the guardians of law themselves get ensnared in the traps of corruption? Crucial role. It not only maintains order and security, but also ensures justice by upholding it's like a crack in the foundation that jeopardizes the stability of the entire structure. Today we journey through the evolution of corruption and law enforcement in Pakistan, a narrative that holds both trials and triumphs. Corruption did not appear overnight. Its roots trace back to the early years post-independence. During this time, the young nation was grappling with establishing a robust legal framework and a fair system of law enforcement. This presented a fertile ground for the seeds of corruption to be sown, as systems were still developing and checks and balances were not firmly in place. With the passage of time, the nation witnessed a shift in power dynamics. The balance of power started to lean heavily towards those who held political and financial influence. This, in turn, led to the misuse of power within law enforcement agencies, where corruption began to thrive. Officers were persuaded to turn a blind eye to crimes committed by the powerful, while the weak and the vulnerable found themselves at the mercy of a system that did not protect them. The 70s and 80s saw a further surge in corruption as political instability and economic crises gripped the nation. Law enforcement agencies were often used as tools by those in power to suppress dissent and maintain control. This only served to deepen the roots of corruption within these agencies. As the years rolled on, corruption began to intertwine itself more deeply within the fabric of law enforcement. The 90s and early 2000s were marked by a series of high-profile corruption scandals involving senior law enforcement officials. These scandals served to further erode public trust in law enforcement and highlighted the urgent need for reform. Countless, everyday instances of corruption that go unreported. The bribes taken, the cases manipulated, the justice denied. But to truly understand the depth and scope of corruption within law enforcement, we must look beyond the headlines. We must consider that corruption, like a stone thrown into a pond, creates ripples that touch every shore. Integrity of an institution that is supposed to protect and serve, turning it into a tool for personal gain and power. Officers who should be upholders of justice become perpetrators of injustice, using their power and influence to further their own interests rather than those of the public. This malfeasance not only undermines the effectiveness of law enforcement, but it also erodes public trust in these institutions. When the guardians of law and order are seen as corrupt, it fosters a sense of disillusionment and cynicism among the public. This can lead to a lack of cooperation with law enforcement, hindering investigations and the enforcement of law, where the rule of law is replaced by the rule of power and money, where justice is not blind, but sees only when integrity is not rewarded, but instead punished or overlooked. It can discourage honest individuals from pursuing careers in law enforcement, further weakening these institutions. Finally, corruption in law enforcement can lead to social unrest and instability. When the public loses faith in the institutions meant to protect them, it can lead to protests, riots, and in extreme cases, even revolution. Corruption, thus, not only disrupts law enforcement, but also erodes the public's trust in it. It's a societal ill that we must all strive to eradicate for the health of our communities, our institutions, and our very democracy. The fight against corruption has been a long and arduous one, marked by both setbacks and victories. The power to investigate, prosecute, and penalize have been pivotal in holding the corrupt accountable. They have been the guardians in the night, the watchdogs keeping a keen eye on the activities within law enforcement. Legislation has also played a vital role. New laws have been enacted but laws and agencies alone are not enough. The fight against corruption has also seen the birth of numerous initiatives aimed at fostering a culture of transparency and accountability. These initiatives the results of these efforts are beginning to show. There have been significant improvements in the transparency and accountability within law enforcement. Officers are now more aware of the consequences of corruption, leading to a decrease in corrupt practices. The fight against these successes have been a beacon of hope, a sign that the fight is not in vain. While the road to eradicating corruption is long and winding, these strides indicate a move in the right direction. The path forward is not